Hello and welcome to this walkthrough. My name is Christina and today I will guide you through our module Digital Personnel File and Documents. Let's have a look at today's agenda first. The Digital Personnel File is the heart of our HR solution. Everything else branches off from here. As a first step, I will show you how to manage employee data inside the Digital Personnel File, where all of your employees' data is maintained in the same place. After that, we will go through the different tabs of the personnel file to see what information is gathered there. We will see the business data and HR details tabs, which show you all of the professional information of your employees, departments, cost centers, and more. Next, we will go through the attendances and absences tabs that give you an overview of your employees' leaves, sick leaves, attendances, work time, and so on. Next, we will have a look at their employment terms that are also stored in their file with all of the related wage information, leave entitlements, and so on. Next, we will have a look at the performance, skills, and education tabs where all of your employees' information regarding performance and skills is stored. You can get an overview of your employees' skill set and education there, as well as access to the performance potential evaluation. Lastly, we will have a look at the Health and Safety tab, where your employees' insurance data is stored. You can also see medical records there and record work accidents if any of these happen. So let's get started. Let's first have a look at how to manage your employees' data. As I just said, maintaining your employees' data is very easily done in one place, and that is the digital personnel file, which is the heart of our HR solution from where everything else branches off. Let me show you in the system how easy it is to create one and what kind of data you can see with it. This is what the HR solution looks like from the inside. You can see I am here in the area HR Hub, which is where HR managers do all of their daily work. The first default page that opens is the Recruiting Interactive Dashboard, where I'm at right now. Feel free to check out our walkthrough of the recruiting module if you would like to know more about that. For now, I will go to the left-hand side menu and scroll down to the administration area and go to Employees, because that is where the digital personnel files are stored. In this area, you can see an overview of all of the employees inside of your system. If you want to create a new employee file, you simply click on the button on top, and then you can add all of the information. Let me add a name here. There are a few mandatory fields, but most of them are optional for you to add if you want to. By the way, the fields that have a little blue plus are not mandatory, but highly recommended to be filled in order to use all of the functionalities inside the solution. Once all of the mandatory fields are filled, you can save. And that's it. You have your digital personnel file for your new employee. By the way, if you hire an employee via our recruiting module, you do not even have to create a file, because by the end, if you hire an applicant, their applicant file will automatically be transferred into an employee file. So this is just in case you want to add somebody new inside of your company who has not been recruited via the recruiting module. But before we go to looking at the tabs one by one, I want to show you one more thing that is important, and that is that you have different views on the digital personnel file. So right now, I am logged in as HR manager. That means I have all the access to all of the information of the employee. But there are different views available here. I can choose, because I am an HR manager and have access to all of them, I can choose between the digital personnel file, which is my HR manager view, or the supervisor file, which shows the information that is available for the supervisor of the employee. And you can see that has a few less tabs, a little bit less information available. For example, the supervisor cannot see the HR details or the personal information of the employee. And the last option is the self-service file, which is how the employee sees their own file. And that looks a little bit different again. The self-service file has the least information available, and the tab private data is similar to what the HR manager sees in private information. The employee can actually change the data in there, and the HR manager will be notified about any changes. For example, if the employee decides to switch bank and adds a new bank information for where their salary should be transferred to, then they can fill that out here and save. And the HR manager will be notified about the changes so that they are aware of what has been changed here. But enough about that. Let's get back to the digital personnel file, and I will show you all of the tabs from an HR manager's perspective. Now that you got an impression how easy it is to create a digital personnel file and that you have seen what it looks like, let's take the rest of our walkthrough to go through the tabs one by one so you can see everything that is possible to be done there. Let's have a look first at the first two tabs, which are business data and HR details. These tabs contain all of the professional information for your employees. For example, their contact data, as well as the department they are in, related cost centers, and more. Let's go through it in detail inside the solution. So here we are inside a digital personnel file of an employee, and we are looking at the first two tabs, business data and then HR details. So in the business data section, you will find a box with general information for your employee, like name and contact data, as well as professional information about their job profile, job title, supervisor, department, and so on, and the work address. Also, you have the timeline here, and the timeline is very practical because, first of all, information is stored here. For example, if they are sent an email and that is connected to their file, it will show up here. And you can also use this attachment button to attach any document you would like to add to the digital personnel file as well. Let's go over to the HR Details tab. In HR Details, a lot of details are added that are important for managing your employees. The system user will be filled if the employee gets access to self-service inside the HR solution. The HR manager is the person who looks out for their file. And you can add important information such as payroll ID, tax ID, social security number, and so on. Access control is helpful if you use badges to access the building, for example. The bank data to where you would transfer the wages of the employee, as well as an overview of their current positions, and if available, position evolution. This employee has worked in the same position for a long time, so there is no old position here. On the right-hand side, you have an overview of all of the employment terms data. We will have a more detailed look at employment terms a little bit later on, but you will find an overview in this tab as well. With the button Onboarding and Offboarding, you could start an onboarding or offboarding project for your employee. The time zone code allows for time and attendance tracking to work in the correct way. You can also add an employer account here. If your company is very big, you will have more than one. The resignation and dismissal tab is relevant if somebody resigns or is dismissed. Then you can start to fill all that information. This employee is actively working for the company, did not resign, is not being dismissed, so there is nothing filled here really. In equipment, you can fill all kinds of equipment the employee uses, for example, a work laptop, a key card, or anything else that is relevant for your company. So that's the overview for the first two tabs of the digital personnel file. The next two tabs are for attendances and absences of your employees. Here, all of their leave requests are recorded, as well as their leave entitlements, as well as sick leaves. Also, in the attendance tab, you can see the work time they had and their attendances if those are tracked. Let's look at it in the system. Next, let's have a look at the tabs for leaves and absences and attendances. So as you can see, the third tab after the two we already looked at is leave and absence. And inside here, you have an overview of all of your employees' leave requests, leave summaries for all the leaves that have already happened, as well as sick leaves and settings for leave approval. For example, this employee had one leave request the last year for a few days of vacation. And in the leave summaries, you can see all of the leave that they took during all of the years of working inside your company. Normally, leave entitlements are taken directly from the employment term, which we will have a look at in a moment. But you can also manually add a leave entitlement here if you want to give an employee extra leave entitlement for some reason. Sick leave requests are recorded down here, and you can see the system also automatically calculates the Bradford factor for this year, so you can easily track employee absenteeism with one glance. What you also find here is some easy settings for the leave request process. So for example, you can define if your employees should be able to approve leave requests by themselves and if a substitute is required for them in case of absence or not. In the tab Time and Attendance, you will find an overview of all of your employees' tracked work time according to either the virtual time clock, if you use that inside the system, or one of our connected terminals, maybe from DataFox. Let's have a look at the tab Employment Terms next. So the employment terms are not the employment terms in a legal context that you give out to employees, but they are like a framework inside the solution. The employment term is where all of the information is gathered regarding the frame of how your employee works for you. For example, the amount of work hours per week, the leave entitlements per year, and the agreed upon wages. You can, inside the digital personnel file, easily create, change, and adjust employment terms to your specifications to cover every way how your employee works for you. Let me show you that inside the solution. So this tab gives you an overview of your employees' employment terms and wages. As I already said in the intro, the employment terms inside the HR solution are not necessarily employment terms in a legal sense, but rather a framework of all of the different things that are important to define inside of an employment contract. The employment terms cover most of this, and we will look at them in a second. You can see here also payments that have been made to the employee over the course of their employment, as well as the agreed upon wages with start and, if applicable, end date. This employee, for example, gets a monthly salary as well as a yearly bonus that has been agreed upon. You can see in the employment terms section that they had a previous employment term in previous years that has been replaced, and their current contract is valid. Let's have a look at the current contract by opening it. As you can see, inside of this employment term, you have all of the important information for your employee's work contract. It is based upon a template. If you would like to know more details about how to create an employment term template that you can reuse over and over again to quickly create employment terms for your employees, please watch the staff administration walkthrough. You can here also specify a classification and type for the employment terms, as well as a start date. And if it is not a permanent but a limited contract, you will also be able to add an end date. It's also possible inside here to enable a work pattern. That means irregular work hours. But if you don't have irregular work hours, you can just add a number of working hours directly inside the relevant tab. You can also add yearly leave entitlements by using this button and say how many entitlement days your employee has. Also, wages that are relevant for your employee are added directly inside the employment term. And as you can see, those are the ones that were also displayed on the main page inside the digital personnel file. Time account configurations is another optional table. If you would like to know more about that, please watch the time and attendance walkthrough. As I said, the working hours tab can be used to specify the weekly work hours for your employee. These fields are all locked because the employment term is already set to valid. As long as it is not valid but still in creation, you can add daily work hours here. And once you save, they will automatically be summed up to the weekly working hours. Let's go back. And there you have it. This is an overview for the employment terms. Maybe one more thing I can show you. If you want to end the employment term, for example, because your employee resigned, you can use this button to do so. And you can also replace the active employment term with a different one if the conditions change. For example, somebody goes from full-time to part-time work. You can do that by changing to a different employment term with this button. So all of the administrational tasks that are necessary for your employee's work contract are very easily done here, and they are also connected to their main digital personnel file. The next two tabs we are going to have a look at are performance and skills and education. So inside these tabs, you will find the performance potential evaluation grid, where you can add your employees' performance and potential on a 9-level grid. that can also be compared to all of the other employees inside of the company. And the Skills and Education tab gives you an overview of your employee's skill set and education. This tab can also be used as a basis to plan yearly reviews, for example. In this context, let me also show you how to add a disciplinary measure to your employee's digital personnel file in case this is needed. So the tab Performance, as the name says, gives you an overview of your employee's performance. Here in the top left, you have the Performance Potential Evaluation Grid, which is very practical because if you fill this out for every employee inside of your organization, you can compare all of them company-wide to each other in relation to their performance and potential. You can easily adjust this assessment by simply dragging the relevant sliders, and it will adjust the relevant position inside of the grid. Below, you have an overview of the performance reviews of your employee, completed ones as well as newly planned ones. And you have the option to add 360-degree reviews if you want to use those. In review details, you can add any skills or targets you would like to add to the employee skill list that you would like to review them on, and so on. Here at the bottom, you also have the option to add disciplinary measures if there is something wrong. For example, if an employee was late a relevant number of times, or if they mishandled any data, or whatever else may come up. You can easily save and close this after adding all of the information, and it is immediately added to the file. And you can see it here. On the right side, you also have an overview of the different targets. The targets are what you added here in the review details. As you can see, a few of them have been completed, a few have been partially completed, and the graph here shows this. So you can see the blue ones are the 100% completed, the partially completed are seen in green, and the ones that haven't started yet are the orange ones. This is practical if you just need a quick glance overview to see how far your employee has come so far with assigned targets. Next, we go to the Skills and Education tab. This gives you an overview of all of the skills your employee has and their current level. For example, this employee has a number of skills inside here. They need to have business English, conflict management skills, and corporate transaction skills. As you can see, for the most part, their required, verified, and self-rating lines up quite well. This is also pictured inside of the graph to the right. Here you can see that the employee always meets or even exceeds the required rating they need to have in their verified grading, and their self-rating is in corporate transaction even a little bit lower than the actual verified grading that they have. In education, you have the option to add any educational progress that your employee makes or any certificates that they have achieved in their job. There is also a table on training participations that will be filled after completing a training with our training module. We will get to that in the walkthrough for training and e-learning. You also have a graphic representation of certifications that are completed and event participation for training events. Lastly, let me show you the tab Health and Safety. There's a lot of useful information stored inside this tab. For example, you can add your employees' insurance data here. Also, this is the place to keep medical records in case your employees require regular vaccines or other medical exams for their job. And also, you can record work accidents here in case they happen. Let me show you what it looks like in the solution. Lastly, let me show you the tab Health and Safety. Inside here, you have all of the insurance information for your employee, as well as, if available, information on limitations, disability, special equipment, and so on. The medical record section is very practical if your employees need to undergo uh, relevant health checks or, for example, get vaccines or have eyesight tests or anything of the sort. Let me quickly show you how to create a new one, because we can see the last health check for this employee was in January of 2024, and the next exam is already due. We can create a new medical record based on the medical exam. And we can say this exam now happened, let's say yesterday, and the next exam will be due next year. We simply save and close the record. And then you can see this is already added to the file. You also have the option to quickly add work accidents here in case they are needed. If you create a work accident, you simply need to add all of the relevant information about what happened, for example. You add the accident time, and optionally all kinds of other information. Once you have filled this, you can save, which unlocks the timeline where you can also add relevant documents if needed. One other thing that this record automatically does is it creates an absence for your employee. If you select it, they are unable to work. So in that case, an absence is already automatically created in the system. So that's it for the most broad overview of the digital personnel file. I hope this was of help to you. And that's it. I hope you got a good overview over our digital personnel file and documents module. And feel free to check out the other walkthroughs for more detailed information on the various topics. See you then, and bye.